This is Gemara in Kiddushin Daf Chof Tes, and all the learning of this month, the month of Elul, as we near towards and inch towards the Yom HaKadosh of Rosh Hashanah. All the learning of this month has been generously sponsored as an incredible Schos Aliyas Nisham of Esther Rezel Basar Ameir. V'siyata Dishmai, the learning the entire Chabura should bring Esther Rezel Basar Ameir to a higher place in Gan Eden Shel Ma'ilom. We pick it up on the bottom of Chav Chesed and Beis with a new Mishnah as we continue discussing the various kinyanim and how one makes them. Says the Mishnah, Rishos HaGavaya Bekesef. The possession literally of Gavaya, of a pie, Beis HaMikdash, Hagdish, is with cash. Rishos Hadyet, the possession of a non-holy entity is Bechazaka, with Chazaka. And the Mishnah concludes with the famous line, Amirasai Ligvaya, saying something to Hektish, Kim Misirasai Lahadi. It is like giving something over to a regular person. Of course, as we always know, the Gemara is going to dissect and explain each entity in the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, 5 lines from the bottom, Chav Chesed and Beis. What does that mean? Explains the Gemara. Gizbar shenasan ma'is b'behem of the Gizbar, the temple treasurer. He's buying an animal for the Beis HaMikdash. Once he gives cash, afilu behema b'sayf ha'ilam, even if the animal is at the end of the world. What's the halacha? Kana, the Beis HaMikdash as a kinyan on that animal. And on the flip side, when it comes to a non-hektish entity like Kana, ad sheyim sheikh, until you do a meshicha, until you pull the actual animal. What does the Mishnah mean when it says saying to Gavaya Tabai is like giving over to a hedyet? Says the Gemara, if someone says this shard should be a carbon hayla, Bayis is hektish house, should be hektish. Afilu b'sayf ha'ilam kana. The Beis HaMikdash is kaina, acquires those entities. Ubehedyet, but when it would come to a hedyet like kana, there would be no kinyan as we turn over to Chav Tes Amud Aleph ad until sheyim shoich v'yachazik, until there is a mashicha, until there is a chazaka, respectively, on the shar. The animal needs the meshicha, the house needs the chazaka, and that's how the kinyan would be affected by the hedyet. Continues the Gemara, mashchai b'mana. 4 cases. If someone does a meshicha b'mana, an item that he does the meshicha onto is worth a mana, 100. And he doesn't manage to redeem it. What does that mean? If you look at Rashi, on the second line, Rashi pulls off a classical kolaimar. I mean, it's not a simple way that you teach, that you explain that it means liftaisai, to redeem. No. Lasei dam of the gizbar. What does over here redemption mean? You didn't manage to pay ad until sha'imad b'masayim, till the items were 200. What do you do now? Says the Gemara, nasin masayim. My taimo. What's the reason? Explains the Gemara, v'nosam ha'kasef v'kam loy. We have a Gzeira Kasev that teaches us that until you pay for the money, it's not yours. Therefore, if it went up in value, you got to pay the excess. Now, on the flip side, ones were 200 went down in value. What's the halacha? No, he's saying Masayim, you got to pay the full 200. My time, says the Gemara, even though you would think, wait, in the mechanics that we just said, you really should only have to give 100. Explains the Gemara, no, you know why? We can't have that a hedyet, that a non-hektish entity is more powerful than hektish itself. Case number 3, you redeemed, you paid for the item when it was worth 200. You didn't do the meshicha. So it's worth 100. Night to my time, you have to give a full 200 my time. Because the kinyan with the hektish is with the money. So you paid the 200, you got to give the 200. But now, what about on the flip side? If you paid a manav, what's the halacha mashe padoi? What you gave is given, but now you have to give more. Ve'ein nice in elamana. That's all you give. Amai. Hachanami asked the Gemara, why do you not have to give more like suggested? Name Elohi Yekoyach Hadyet. Chamar mehektish. Says the Gemara, no. A hedyet as well cannot back out. Just like a hedyet cannot back out. Therefore, the guy would not be able to back out from hektish. And therefore, he's going to have to pay the rest. He's going to have to pay the last 100. Says the Mishnah, now we begin a very famous Gemara, Mitzvah Saben Ala'av. Really, we're at a little bit of a juncture, a roadblock over here. We just finished what we could label as part 2 of the Masechta. Part 1 was different acquisitions, kinyanim, as regard to Ishos, marriage. Part 2 was all the different acquisitions of Avadim, which then segued into the different acquisitions of Stam Kinyanim. And now we move on to part 3. And says the Mishnah, Kol mitzvahs haben al ha'av. All the mitzvahs of the son on the father. Literally, of course, the Gemara is going to explain what this means. Anoshim chayovin v'noshim p'turis. Such mitzvahs only men are obligated. Part 2 of the Mishnah. The flip side, v'chol mitzvahs ha'av ben. Any mitzvah the father has to do for the son. Men and women are chayiv. Part 3. As any positive time-bound mitzvah. But on the flip side, it's not time-bound. And finally, any negative commandment. Bein shazman grama, bein shaloi azman grama, echad anoshim, echad noshim, are chayavim, men and women, chutz, from 3 entities that women are not obligated in, that we're going to get to eventually. Baal takif, baal tashchis, baal tatam milamesim. So, multiple dinim in the Mishnah with regard to the obligations of mitzvahs, and most particularly, as we're going to see, the differences between men and women. And with that, we begin with the Gemara that asks, what is the case of the first part of the Mishnah? If you're going to tell me, you know what it means, it says, that the son has to do to the father. What? A woman is pater, girls don't have to do the same thing for her father. You have to fear your father and your mother. So we see clearly that a woman does have a din of kibbutz. So how can you tell me it's only a din by men? Amar Rav Yehuda Kamar Kol mitzvah ben hamutalois aloav la'asois leben. You know what this means? This means the mitzvahs of the son that are incumbent upon the father to do to the child. Then anoshim chayavim, but mami v'noshim are b'turis. The Gemara proves this point. This fits with the Mishnah. Father is obligated to give his son a bris milah, liftaisei, to redeem him, lamdei terah, to learn terah, let's see isha to marry him off, lamdei omnis, teach him a trade, v'yei sharman avla shita v'mayim, even to teach him how to swim. Rav Yehuda Imer, koshein malamed es benoy omnis, you don't teach your son how to trade, me'lamdoi, list this. You've taught him to be a thief. List this, al kedaitach. Really? You taught him how to be a thief? Ela ki'ilu, it's as if, me'lamdoi, list this. So that's the first part of the Mishnah. What does the Mishnah mean? The Mishnah means the mitzvahs that the father is obligated to do to the son, and that's where the Gemara Mishnah is teaching us that it's a din of the father, and we'll see now what that means. Says the Gemara limaloi, to give a bris milah. Minol, and where we know this from, and let's just take it slowly because the same exact steps that are going to apply here are going to apply in Amud Beis. So let's read this carefully so we can go a little bit faster in Amud Beis. Minolon, where we know that the father is obligated to give his son a bris milah. T'chsevi amal Avram et Yitzchak benoi. Avram Avinu gave his son Yitzchak a bris milah. Vayechad b'lei mahali avu. On with the father didn't give the bris. Who's the next one obligated? Mechayev Eidina, Bezdin has to step in. How do I know this? Save as the Pasuk says, Imolachem Kol Zachar, that all of Klal Yisrael is obligated. V'yicha, Delay Mahale Beidina, on the last narrow line. Mechayev Yolim Al Navshev, Bezdin didn't give someone a bris milah. The father didn't give someone a bris milah. What happens now? Next, the person has an obligation to give himself a bris milah. Where do we know that from? Says the Gemara in the first line, they'll say that he will be cut off. So we see that each person has an obligation onto themselves. Asks the Gemara, very good that you sourced the father, the son. Where do we know that she, the mother, is not obligated? Says Gemara, him and not her. We only see this by Avram Avinu. How do we know this applies? Ad infinitum for all future generations. Son is very Ishmael. Sav comes to teach us not just then, but for all future generations. Zeros, how do we know they'll save? Sav is Yishuv Chaskev Amseyu. We just has in the Torah, I believe. No, we didn't earlier in Devarim. Yeshua commanded, v'chazkev amseu. Miyat u'ledayrais, how do we know it applies to future generations? Chsev, man hayomer shasiva v'halo ledayrais seichon. So you see the word siva applies not just then, but to all future generations. That's the din by bris milah. Not only does the father have the obligation, Bezin has the obligation, the person has the obligation themselves, but mami oisai v'loy oisa, she does not have an obligation. We continue. Approximately 5 lines into the Y lines, about 12 lines to the bottom, says the Gemara, Liftasai to redeem him, Pidyon Aben, the Allah of redeeming the firstborn son. Says the Gemara, we know this one, Tifta, that any male of your children, of your sons, you have to redeem. If the father, doesn't redeem someone, how do we know he has to do it himself? Obviously, we notice that the Gemara skips over the obligation of Bezdin, goes straight to himself. Padai tifta. He asked the Gemara, and she how do you know she's not obligated to redeem? If here we darshan, anyone that has the mitzvah to redeem themselves, then mitzvah is a chayim. But no slowly a woman, then ain't a mitzvah a chayim. Says Gemara, how do you know? How do you know that she herself, and of course, as Gemaras always do, we don't take anything for granted. So how do you know that she doesn't have an obligation? If others are obligated to redeem, then mitzvah liftos is not, so you got to redeem yourself. Liftos say if other people don't have obligation to redeem, ein mitzvah liftos is atzmai. So how do you know that other people don't have to redeem her? 3 lines to the bottom. How do you know that others don't have to redeem her? So once you know the din of Pidyon Aben only applies to Benecha, so you know other people don't have to redeem her, then we know she doesn't have to redeem herself, and then we can learn out that she does not have to redeem her son. Tanu Rabbanan, 2 lines from the bottom. Let's start weighing out different scenarios. We have a person. He grew up and he found out his father never redeemed him. So he has to redeem himself. But guess what? He also has a son to redeem. Who comes first? Who kaidem lebenai? He comes, he has to redeem himself first. Rav Yehuda, no. Benai kadmai, the son comes first. Why? Shezem mitzvah se'ala aviv, zem mitzvah benai olav. He comes first. Why? Because, the son comes first, says Rav Yehuda. Why? Because that's his obligation. To redeem himself wasn't really his obligation. That was really the father's obligation. He didn't do it, so eventually he rolled on to himself. But he should take care of his optimal obligation, which is to redeem his son, Machlekes Rav Yehuda and the Chachamim. Omer Rav Yirmiyah says, Rav Yirmiyah, Hakol Moedim, everyone agrees. Kolech, as we turn over to Chavtes Amid Beis, the Lek Ela Chamesh Slayim. Let's say we have a person that he has to redeem himself, he has to redeem his son, but it's not just a problem of Kedima. which one comes first? Rather, the question is, he only has 5 slayim. He's only able to redeem one of them. What does he do? Says the Gemara, Chavtasim Ebeis, Ho Kaidem Lebenai. He comes first. My time, what's the reason? A big klal in halacha, mitzvah de gufe adifa. A mitzvah on yourself is more adif. You first have to do your own mitzvah before you take care of other people's mitzvahs. Ki pligi, when is there a machlokes echadiga chamesh mishubadim v'chamesh b'nei chayrin? A very interesting case. I apologize that the Gemara is having an issue over here. Hopefully he'll be with us in a moment. Says the Gemara, interesting case. What if someone has 5 actual coins? So he can redeem someone, and then he has 5 coins owed to him. So which one of those entities is used for himself, and which one we leave to be able to collect it from Nulchasim Mishubadim? Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Savar. Rav Yehuda holds that what? Anytime you have a biblical loan, it's as if it's written in a shtar. And therefore, the 5 coins that he has to redeem his son. And then what? The Mishubadim, the Azal Kayin, and then the Kayin takes the 5 coins that he has, Mishubadim, meaning on fields that he sold, and uses that to redeem his son. So he himself redeems, and the rest of the money goes to the collecting agency for himself. That's Rav Yehuda. Rabbanan Savri Mavdach Suva Varaisa Lav Kichsuva Bishtar Danya. And therefore, Hilkach Mitzvah Dagifa Adif, since you don't have that in the Raisa, therefore the mitzvah to do yourself is Adif. Tanu Rabbanan continues the Gemara 8 lines down, a similar case. Left eyes as Binai Vilalois the Regal. How do we weigh? One has to redeem his son, he also has to go Oil Regal. The Dinda Raisa Shalosh Panim Bashana. To go up to the Beis HaMikdash. What's the halacha? Says the Gemara, Paidas B'nai, and only Achar Kach Oil Regal. Rav Yehuda disagrees again, and he says Oil Regal Achar Paidas B'nai. Why? Says Rav Yehuda. Shezo Mitzvah Iveres. Of course, says Rav Yehuda. Aliyas the Regal is time bound. You can only do it now. You're going to lose the mitzvah. Whereas Vizu to redeem the son, Zu Mitzvah She'enai Iveres. So now, based on this machlokes, asks the Gemara, Bish, Rav Yehuda the Gemara Taima. Rav Yehuda explained his reasoning, because why it's a mitzvah of Eres. El Rabbana my time Ayu explains the Gemara Damar Kra Kol Bachar Benechativ Dev Hadar Lo Yeru Penei Rei Kam. So we see within the way the Torah is written within the Psukim itself, first comes Benechativta, and only afterwards you go for Aliyas Liregel. Tana Rabbana continues the Gemara, Menayin Shem Hayo Leichamish Banim Echamish Nashim V'Chachayev Liftois Kulam Tamalemer Kol Bechar Benechativte. All your male firstborn sons. Says Mar Pshita B'Terechem Talarachmana. And each child is the B'Terechem, is the first of the womb of their mother. So what's the chiddush that the father is redeem? All of them explains the Gemara. Maldadeim Menil Bechar Bechar Minachala. Malhalan Reishis Aina Afkan Reishis Aina. You would think that maybe the whole din of Bechar with regard to our dinim only has to do with like Nachala, and therefore would not be all 5. Says the Gemara. No. We continue about 8 lines from the white lines. The 2 dots. The Lamdai Taira. Meinalim, already know you have to teach your son Taira. Says the Gemara, you have to teach your son. If the father did not teach the son, how do we know the Mechayev is to figure out a way to teach himself? To save ulamatem. How do we know a woman is not obligated? And from here we dash a culture. Only obligated to teach someone else if you have the obligation first on yourself. Women don't have the obligation first of themselves. They don't have to teach someone else. But ask the Gemara, how do you know that's true? How do you know she doesn't have to teach herself? And from here we dash a culture. If someone else is obligated to teach you, then so you have obligation to teach yourself. But if someone else is not obligated to teach you, like a woman named Mitzvah Lamda is Atzmai, and how do we know that din is true? How do we know that no one is obligated to feed her? Feed her Taira. Tamar Krav Lemata Maisam Es Benechem, and we darshin Viloi Benoi Sechem. Continue on the theme of Talmud Torah. Continues the Gemara Tanu Rabban. Ho Lil Maidu Benai Lil Maidu Kadin Benai. You have a choice who to send to yeshiva. The father goes first. If you don't know, if the kid is quick, mulach is salted, he's able to retain the memory. V'tamidam is kayemes b'yadai. Then Benai Kadmai. K'adir Avaka, Breder Avacha, Bar Yaakov, Shadri Abu Lekamed Abai sent his father from Avaya. Ki'asa Chazid Lavim Echadin Shemaita. See, he wasn't so smart. Amar La Ana Diva Minach Tov Atz Teir Dazel Ana. And I'm gonna go. So we see over here this concept that whoever is the better learner, he's the one that gets the first dibs in going to yeshiva. Shama Abai heard Kavi Ahu Mazik. Excuse me. Kahavi Asi. Abai hears that he's coming. The great Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. So he was Ahu Mazik Bir Abanan Dabai. There was a certain Mazik, a certain shade. Usually shade him. Don't come out a day. Usually shade him, don't harm if there's two people there, but this mazik, this shade, broke all rules. Amar lo tzeitiv le'inish shpiza. No one should give the great Rav Chanabar, Rav Yaakov, a place to stay. If no one gives him a place to stay, then what happens? He's going to have to sleep in the base medrash. And then, Efshar to Mizrachis Nisha. Maybe he's going to be in the base medrash, Rav Acha, and this mazik, the shade is going to come to counter him, and Rav Acha will take care of him. So what happens? That indeed, all bas bahube rabbanan edu kitanina deshiva shivusa. And what happened? The shade appeared like a snake with 7 heads. Called kare de kare. Every time Rav Chanan, Rav Acha Bar Yaakov would bow, notar chareshe, one head will fall off. Amrulu machar. The next day he said, how did you put me into this situation? Okay, the Maisai survived, the Maisai davened, and the snake's heads kept on falling off. But if not for an ace, they would have been in Sakana. Taner Abana, with this we conclude. Lil Mai Taira release Isha, Yil Mai Taira, first learn Taira, and only after Zachachis Isha. Bavim Yavshar, if it's impossible. Loi, below Isha, you can't learn without a wife. Then he's Isha, Vachilum, first married, and then learn Taira. Amar Abidam Shmuel, Alacha Naisi Isha. And then Vachilim Taira. If Yechlam Rechaim is Havarai, Yaslik Vatayra, he has all the Herurim, he has all the thoughts. How's he going to be able? Excuse me, the opposite. Noise Isha, how could once you marry a woman, then you have all the obligations? How can you do that? Yaslik Vatayra. One is for us to Bavel, one is for them in Eretz Yisrael. Machlekes Rashi, it tells us what exactly is the two different pshatim, but we're definitely seeing that depending on the level that one is holding out learning, one is necessitating, one is needing to go out and get married, that will determine whether he has to do it or whether he should wait. We'll pick it up for the 2 dots next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.